Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are doing the TPR Visual Artist Forum today, and I'd like to thank everybody so much for being here despite our rainy weather. And we have our amazingly talented panelists and moderator here, who I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to. But thank you so much for coming, and we'll use this mic for audience questions.
Thank you so much. I want to first thank the Texas Public Radio team for pulling this together in this beautiful space. So if we could go ahead and give them a round of applause, I'd appreciate that. My name is Krystal Jones, and I'm the director of the City of San Antonio's Department of Arts and Culture. And I also want to thank my team, who is so fantastic. I know that many of you met them out there at the table, and if you haven't been to the table, go get your Department of Arts and Culture swag. But I'd like you all to just kind of wave and say a little hello. If you haven't met the team at the Department of Arts and Culture, I really encourage you to, because it is really a team and community effort to do what we do. So I am really pleased to be here to talk to our panelists today. Very pleased to have this partnership with Texas Public Radio. We've done a few events with them about film, music, and of course now we're talking about visual arts. So this is a partnership that I'm really excited to continue to bring the arts to San Antonio. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists, and I'll start from your left, and my left as well, right? Or no, you're right. Wherever we are. I'll start with Ronney. So Ronney Stevens was born in San Antonio, Texas, and his earliest art experiences can be traced to his childhood with an adoring relative. At age 3, he recalls his aunt, who was a school teacher, would babysit him and occupy him with her classroom art supplies. Upon graduating from San Antonio's Brackenridge High School, he moved to Los Angeles and studied fine arts and portraiture at both the Otis Parsons Art Institute and the American Animation Institute. Though educated in top-tier environments, he continues to believe that the experience he has acquired by trial and error have been his best teacher. Since his time as a student, Ronney has built a diverse portfolio of commissioned pieces, pastel drawings, and mixed media work that attests to an admiration of celebrities and speaks to a vibrancy of his community. He has shown his art in Los Angeles' African Marketplace in Baldwin Hills, in the Dallas African American Art Museum, and in the Austin, Texas State Capitol. He is currently a member of the Austin Pastel Society and the San Antonio Ethnic Art Society. And he is also a part of a network of fine artists here in San Antonio, Texas. So I want to welcome Ronney. Okay, moving on to Ethel Shipton. Whether making a mark on paper, a sculpture for the gallery wall, or an intervention in the public realm, San Antonio-based Ethel Shipton challenges context and draws on the power of the unexpected. In one series, she upholsters basketball hoops, skateboards, baseballs, and axes with colorful vinyl, boldly feminizing traditional masculine objects. For a public commission at a newly built San Antonio bus transfer, she tinted the station's windows blue, yellow, red, and green, and applied the words grace, listen, talk, and forward. These evocative gestures both softened and activated the otherwise stagnant waiting room, encouraging interaction between the waiting strangers. Shipton has exhibited at numerous galleries, both here and in San Antonio and across the country. It includes at Art Pace, the Museum of Fine Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Blue Star Contemporary Art Museum, or the Contemporary, Shore Institute of Contemporary Art in Long Beach, California, and the list really goes on, including Sala Diaz. And in 2011, Shipton was awarded Artist Honoree of the Year at the Contemporary, the art museum here in San Antonio. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ethel. I'm working on the rebranding for the Contemporary. Okay, next is Jenelle. So Jenelle Esparza is an interdisciplinary artist who was born in the coastal city of Corpus Christi, Texas. She attended the University of Texas at San Antonio and received her BFA in photography in 2010. She currently lives and works here in San Antonio, and she examines the lesser-known history of cotton and labor in South Texas through photography and textiles, and incorporates concept of body movement, history, gender, identity, culture, and race. Her recent projects utilize textiles and found objects to explore the parallels between landscape and bodily experiences and the implications of generational trauma. Esparza has exhibited nationally in institutions such as the DePaul Art Museum in Chicago, Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, and the Momentary in Bentonville, Arkansas. She is the recipient of numerous honors, including the 2015 National Association of Latino Arts and Culture Artist Grant, the Art Pace International Artist Residency, and the National Performance Network Artist Engagement Fund. And her work is also included in the permanent collection of the San Antonio Museum of Art. So welcome, Jenelle. So we have also Francisco Cortes, and he is a San Antonio-based artist and known for his photojournalistic storytelling, which ranges from pensive moments to civil unrest to the experiences of immigrants and their alternating context. His formal training has been in photojournalism and Chicano studies at the University of Texas at Austin. With film photography and darkroom printing techniques as his foundation, he uses the context of his many environments to shape the manner in which he looks through the lens, altering his work with only a minimalist approach, accentuating and not manipulating truths. Single artist shows include City on the Rise, Desde Oaxaca, and the live recordings. In addition to photography, Cortes has been a public school educator for 15 years, and during those same years, he has been a photography instructor for Black and Brown youth through for the San Anto Cultural Arts, the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center, San Antonio Youth Centers, and his own nonprofit, the Light Catcher Society. So thank you for joining us, Francisco. So we're going to have just about an hour-long discussion here, and then we'll have an audience Q&A following. So getting right into it, I would like to just start with you, Ronney, and tell us about yourself and really what inspired you to become a visual artist.
Basically, I've had a pencil in my hand since I was 3 years old. I went to school on the east side, and I would say that I was financially handicapped, so what I would do when I was young, I would draw Spider-Man, Captain America, and I would sell my pictures to the other kids for their lunch money so I could have lunch money. But I basically... art was my escape. I would paint things that I wanted to have, and my instructors, my teachers would encourage me, and I basically knew I wanted to be an artist from a very small age, but as life would have it, I was, if you live it, you breathe it, and you put yourself in that environment, basically things happen. They tend to lead you toward where you want to go.
Great. And we'll talk a little bit about that entrepreneurship that's needed to be an artist. And Ethel, I'd really like to learn about your story, about what inspired you to become a visual artist.
Well, I didn't think I was going to be a visual artist because you can't make it in the world as a visual artist. It's the way I grew up. But the thing that inspired me to be visual and just kind of taking the world was living on the border and living in Laredo, Texas for seventh generation from there, and being able to cross back and forth to see artisans and all the things in the mercado that would change every season, and the colors and things like that. But I was a little bit like Ronney, where I always did draw, but I also it was being part of a visual world more than a literary world. It was the smells, and it was the texture of my environment that allowed me to become an artist.
That's great. Jenelle, how about you? What inspired you?
Well, I grew up also in like a blue collar family, so being an artist was not necessarily an option or even a thought that you could, like, I didn't even know you could study art in college until I was way older. And right after high school, I was cooking in kitchens and stuff before I even started community college. But I was always artistic and I was always very introspective. And I had a lot of artists. Well, I have a lot of artists in my family. My dad is a really excellent illustrator. He used to draw our portraits as kids and he would photograph us. And then he's the one who taught me how to use a camera, first off. So he would photograph us and then he would draw our portraits in graphite pencil. My grandmother was also really artsy. She was a quilter, but she used to draw and she would paint and she was kind of like a crafty person. And I grew up in that kind of household. So on both sides of the family, there was like art. But it wasn't necessarily like art as a profession. It was art as like, this is just a cool thing that I know how to do or a talent that I have, but like I work in air conditioning and heating, or I'm like a mechanic, or I'm a nurse, And so finally figuring out that I could go to school for just art was really disappointing to my family, but really exciting for me. Yeah.
I think we'll talk a little bit more too after we talk to Francisco about where was the moment where you said, "Oh, this is actually I'm doing this." So, but Francisco, how about your inspiration to become an artist?
I think for me it was looking at National Geographic magazines. I'm old enough that there were still magazines, and I had a huge collection. I think that piqued my interest because I could buy them for like 5 or 10 cents. I used to have to do a community service at a Goodwill outlet, and so they were like 5 cents. So I had this massive collection, and there's just this curiosity about, I don't know, I've never been a person that wanted to really travel, but seeing those images just made me want to know more, right? And so I think that's what did it for me. And I think once I finally was exposed or had access to photography, I realized that I don't know, it was almost like something that I needed. And it came fairly easy to me because I was always like a very introspective person, or just very quiet, or very like hyper aware and observing all the time, even when people, don't realize it. And so I realized that was definitely a huge strength, which especially at the time I needed, because I began late in life. I was like 18 when I started, but a lot of the people that I started with or took my first classes with, they had been doing it since they're like 10 years old, right? So it was that challenge of trying to like catch up, which was a result of lack of access, right? Which then I think kind of like drove me even further to pursue it, and then also expose others to it at the same time.
Talking about that, I know I'm already going a little off script. I wanted to know, have you had the moment, or what was a moment in your career where you just said, "Oh, this is happening. This is what I'm doing." And has there been that moment where you said, "I've made it. This is what I'm doing, and this is the defining moment that's gonna set my career path"? Anyone can take that. Go ahead, Jenelle.
For me, it really was like, so after high school, I was just working in restaurants. I was like fast food, and I was cooking in restaurants for like years. Like I was a Thai cook and a kitchen manager and like a line cook. And when I finally decided to go to college, that's when I started taking, like, you were kind of like the undecided major for like the first semester, and was just sort of like, okay, I'm going to try this college thing out. And then, figuring out that I could major in art, and taking a bunch of art classes was like, yeah, this is it. Like, I don't know what I want to do with it. I don't even know what I could do with it. And so the college path wasn't necessarily super traditional. But figuring out that you could study it, that I could, like, if I'm going to go to college and get a degree, this is exactly what I want to do. And it felt right. I was really into it.
Like I just felt like there were so many possibilities with it, and the importance of expressing myself was a big deal.
Francisco, you were going to.
Yeah, I think it was that finally having that access to it. You know, I really kind of wanted. I didn't realize to what extent. And when I first started, you know, when I was fortunate enough to go to college, I started as a print journalism major, and then a whole bunch of events transpired. Like my first year, there was just had a horrible print journalism teacher. 9/11 happened. There's just weird things going on. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do print, especially because I don't even know why I chose that, to be honest. Like I was a creative writer, and then taking like J310, which is very formulaic, and then all those other elements. And then so I finally took the first photojournalism class, and so that was kind of it. But I think also when I first did an assignment in Mexico documenting a lot of the civil unrest in Oaxaca, the teachers against the governor, Ulises Ruiz at the time, it just made me realize like how powerful my own images could be. And I think especially in that experience, it was very, I'm not sure what word to use, but I just connected with it on a whole nother level, because I mean, that's where I'm originally from, is Oaxaca, you know, and that was a time where the internet really wasn't a thing. So really, you know, going in there and providing images to speak truths was definitely necessary at the time. You know, now we're in a time where everybody's a, you know, digital journalist or what have you. But there was tremendous value in that experience for me.
Ethel?
Well, I finished up at UT, and then I went and moved to Mexico City for a couple of years, and then I had worked my way through school, and ran out of money in Mexico City. Very hard to do, but I didn't anyway. And then I came back to Austin. I had the same job, living with my sister. It was like, is this if these 2 years had not happened at all? And I thought, the whole time I was in Austin, I would come to San Antonio, because San Antonio had an art scene and Austin did not. So I had worked for like 14 years for the state, from like when I was 19 to, I'm not even going to say when, but anyway, and I had 6 years to my 20-year kind of, what do they call in, you're vested, you know, where you get health care for the rest of your life. And I was like, I'm out. I'm moving to San Antonio. My mother freaked out. She was like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. And I never looked back, and that was it. And I have community here. I've been able to flourish as an artist here. I had 3 or 4 jobs when I first got here. I have 3 or 4 jobs now, but that's a different story. I found myself in Southtown with a gracious, lovely person who was an art patron for many, many years and still is, Mike Casey, who had 5 little houses that were duplexes, where one of them is now Valadez, where he rented to me for $250 a month. And he did that for lots of us. And then, so in that particular community, we call it, it's no longer, but they call it the compound. I traced it back from 1992 to 2020. There were 94 different kind of creatives that had lived there. So it was really a flourishing place, and it continues to be. But that was a gift that I didn't know I was walking into. And from there, then I met my now husband, and he moved in with me, and we were paying $250 a month. and Mike sweetly said, I think I have to raise the rent. I said, that's fine. He raised it to $400 a month, and I think it was $400 a month until he sold the property in 2021, I believe. Wow. So those gifts that San Antonio gives you, affordability to be able to move. And I will also say, when I moved to San Antonio, I had a studio at Blue Star, and I was trying to figure out how to have a presence here, and I think I paid $75 a month, and I had trouble doing that. I started what I call for 3-year it was 3 years. It was from 1998, 1999, 2000 for the millennium. And I had the project room, which was a one night only show. So artists would come in, they'd do one night, and then they were out the next day. So it was a way for me to get involved in the community and to give back. The hardest thing was getting people out in one day, but yeah. So by having those gifts of having very, very low rent or people saying yes to you instead of no, there was always a yes, and those yeses make a difference.
Ronney, how about you?
When did I decide that I was going to do art as a living? I graduated from Breckenridge and I applied for college, went to Los Angeles, and naturally I applied as to be a graphic artist. And one day I was sitting in class in the room, imagine as quiet as this right here, and all of a sudden my stomach growled and it sounded like a bear, and everybody looked at me, and I'm like, you're sitting here starving and you're talking about being an artist, you need a job. So anyway, I went to the workforce, and I read somewhere that the majority of artists are tax-paying citizens, meaning that you work a job and you do your art as well. So I did both of them. I basically became a delivery driver, and I enrolled in a studio called Studio 108, and it was where people go to rub elbows with people that sell art in Beverly Hills and what have you. I became involved with the American Animation Institute, and one day the instructor said that if you're not interested in animation, you need to go somewhere and be an artist. And I took him literally because I really didn't like Bugs Bunny anyway. So I juggled, the work and the art, but I stuck to my art. So one day, a friend from Texas, they told me that my mother was in Texas, and they said that my uncles and aunts were getting up in age, and I was faced with a dilemma. I was at the point to where I could sell artwork in Beverly Hills or come back to Texas and take care of my mother. So I was faced with a bit of a dilemma. I met a gentleman. I'd like to think he was an angel because I just shared my story with him. And he said, well, son, I had that same problem. And by the time I made up my mind, I was 30 days too late. So I immediately packed my stuff and came back to Texas to take care of my mother. So much for the art career. But in doing so, I was able to spend 11 beautiful years with her, took care of her uncles, aunts, daughters, lots of family members. But I'm able to go to California every year, ironically, with my art. And it was just a matter of staying true to that, and you got to have a job in order to buy art supplies. So eventually you get to the point where you're able to make that transition. But my love of art, I never let that go. And ironically, I'm able to go back to California, and it's good that I did move to Texas because I've met nurses in California that say that they can't retire and live off of their salary. So after I spent about 2 weeks of art in California, Texas started looking real good. Yeah, but just staying true to what you love to do, and it'll make a way for you.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask, starting with Francisco, I know you talked a little bit about, what inspires you, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about the themes and subject matters you explore with your art, and over time, how has that evolved?
Yeah, of course. I think evolution is key. When I first started, I said my degree was in photojournalism, right? So definitely, as they happen, things, documentary style, which I very much still love. And even then, it was really, I was focusing on topics that are dear to me, any chance that I could, and I still do. But I think the way that it's evolved, though, from that time is, I think I was more focused on telling other people's stories, and slowly it's evolved to me kind of wanting to tell my own story. And I feel like I'm still pretty far from where I want to be, and I'm in no rush, right? But I've seen that through some of the subject matter in the last couple of years. A lot of it is always focused on immigration, even immigration within Mexico. Right. For example, in Oaxaca, we grow a lot of piña, sugarcane, things like that, and then so there's migration within southern states, the Yucatan states, to Oaxaca to help with the crops, and that's not something that people really think about within a country like Mexico. We think about Mexicanos coming over here as immigrants, but even then that transition from coming from Mexico to over here. And focusing on the subject matter of how we, as a society, and that includes Latinos, Mexicanos, Mexican Americans, we force immigrants to basically change before we can begin to accept them at any real level. So, for example, before we really see immigrants as people, we want them to have our mannerisms, speak our language, see the city in the way that we do, and then for some reason they become valid, right? And I'm speaking, it's a general thought, but it is very much true. And I think especially in a city like San Antonio, you have Mexicanos, you have Chicanos, right? Even within families, you have Spanish-speaking people, you have English-speaking people, right? And sometimes they're at odds with each other, right? And I think that seldom the victor is going to be the immigrant in that situation. And the immigrant has to force themselves to change to be accepted, right? Like I said, even within families, even within a city like this, San Antonio, we pride ourselves in having the culture that we have, or we exploit the culture and the history that we have. I think better said, but that's like I could go into that. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, so that's basically my subject matter, and even further from that, and extending that is then when we are here for generations and you become a Chicano, and then how the systems that are built not for us on land that belong to us and legally still belongs to us shapes us, and a lot of times there's pressures that force us to live in certain situations or react in certain ways. Sometimes it's a self-fulfilled prophecy, but basically the way that we are is not what we were really meant to be, right? And so it's exploring that theme with photography.
Thank you for sharing that. Jenelle, how about you, the themes and subject matters that you explore and how it's evolved over time?
It's definitely evolved quite a bit. I started off as a photography major, and that was like my first medium that spoke to me back at Del Mar College in Corpus. And I really liked my teacher. And it was very much just like exploring. And it was also the first tool that my dad taught me how to use and stuff. So it was really, and I still love photography, and I use it as like a study, almost like a sketchbook. And majority of the time it's digital these days. And then it moved and evolved as the work became more conceptual, and a photograph was no longer enough to like portray a concept or a theme. It just moved into material and the importance of different materials and the story that a material could tell, and the history of something like like a bowl of cotton or something. I was growing up in South Texas and being raised in Corpus, but having family sprinkled all throughout the South Texas Valley, and growing up around tons and tons of cotton fields and knowing all the history of my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, and everybody coming from that world of picking cotton, and not realizing as a kid what that connected us to nationally and globally, and this huge industry that is, cotton, and all the interconnectedness of all of that. And just like being totally like just smacked in the face with the reality of that, and then also smacked in the face with the reality and the truth that we were not taught that was like a history that was taken from us and hidden from us, and then not, realizing that as an adult was like, oh, this is important, and it's empowering to know your own history as a person of color. So it was like that. And so moving more into the conceptual part, I was photographing cotton fields, and I was photographing like my family and all these things. And those photos are very special to me. And then moving more into like the conceptual work was like, well, I should try to work with the actual fiber and see what I can work with that. And it turned into like fabricating glass work, like old tools and stuff that I grew up around, garden hose and plows and stuff. And then bronze casting came into play because I was casting the cotton plant. It's called the spur. When you take the fiber out, the little hard shell of the plant that pops the cotton out. That's the painful part that my grandma used to tell me would cut up her hands and stuff. And it's really beautiful. It looks like a little star. And so I just had this concept of like almost like when people would cast their first child's shoes in bronze, and it was like this commemoration of this person and their life and stuff. So I thought I would cast these in bronze. So I took a bunch of classes here at the Southwest School of Art and learned how to bronze cast and created art from that. And then it just moved into different processes, and now I'm in weaving. Which seems like pretty obvious, like, oh yeah, cotton, fiber, yarn, weaving, and the history of that process and stuff. But it took me a really long time. I haven't been weaving very long at all. And yeah, so just I work really conceptually with materials that have a long history. And I work within like an installation type realm of using cotton fiber, using photography, using found objects that all kind of pertain to that history of a lineage that I'm tied to, but like millions of other people are also tied to. And creating an environment that people can walk into. I really like the realm of installation work because of that immersiveness of it.
Ethel, how about you?
Oh my goodness. Well, most of my work, I have to go. I mean, even your introduction, I had forgotten some of those things I had done. But most of my work is derived from just what I'm looking at in the world, like just things that I've been looking at. But it started with I started as a photographer as well, and then moved into sculpture and installation. And most recently, it's been a lot of just, it's screen print at the moment, and it's mostly just things that speak to me. There's been a lot of, I guess in 1998 or something, I had a show at Valadez, and I started looking at road signs, mostly arrows. You know, arrows, they direct you, but they don't give you an answer kind of thing. And that was because, that was a concept because I was realizing that I had moved somewhat place in my life where I could look back and see where I'd been. So that kind of happened, and highways were did some drawings and things with highways because of the idea of movement and where we're going. And so they come from a conceptual place, and then I look in the world and I find things that speak to me. So there's been a lot of road signs lately. But there's also been upholstery of sports materials to kind of soften the world. I mean, it comes from a conceptual place, but it's more immediate of where I'm standing or sitting or touching. So it's more indexical in that manner.
I love learning how, I mean, all of you have been influenced by your surroundings, which, that's what artists do. Yeah, that's what artists are. But then also how you're reflecting on your own experience in the world and your surroundings. So, Ronney, how about your work of, what themes or subject matters are you focusing on, and how has that evolved over time?
Over time, I joined the Austin Pastel Society. I met a guy that he painted the most beautiful clouds in the world, and he was nearsighted. And I asked him, "What are you using?" And he said that he was using sandpaper, and it's actually color fixed paper, but when you use pastel on it and you blend it, it gives you this billowy effect, and I've been hooked on it ever since. So in joining the Austin Pastel Society, I usually painted musicians and things that mattered to me. I like music. But there was an opportunity to display in the lower rotunda of the state capitol, and I submitted a picture of Malcolm X. Needless to say, they said, "Well, sir, you're a good artist, but you got anything else that you might could show us?" So I went from one extreme to the other. I submitted a portrait of a Caucasian lady with lace on her face, and the sun was coming through the lace. And they looked at the picture and they said, "Oh, well, that's nice. You can put anything you want in here," But what it led to was another gentleman wanted me to paint jazz musicians, and he asked me a question. He said, "Do you only paint musicians of color?" And I in turn asked him what color, And so I painted some African American musicians, some Caucasian musicians, and I also painted, it was a setting in the park. So I also painted a Martian in the trees. And I literally told him that I paint white people, I paint black people, I'll even paint a Martian if a Martian came and sit for me. So when I submitted him the picture, he looked at the trees and he asked me, did I put a Martian in there? And I told him, no, I didn't, but it really was a Martian in there. But my point is, art doesn't have color boundaries. If you paint an individual, just say, for instance, you paint a dog. Either it looks like the dog or it doesn't. It's good or you need to practice. But portraiture can make or break you. But now I work in La Vita sometimes, one day a week. But I had to learn how to paint a variety of subject matters. Like, we went through the pandemic with George Floyd, and I painted, pictures that were relevant to what was going on during that time. But I paint butterflies and flowers now. And I told a visitor that I was painting butterflies so that my work wouldn't be so militant. And the lady told me, well, that's a militant butterfly. But she was joking with me, but it made me, my work has evolved now to where I paint things that are universal, but I paint, you know, children and I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a little black child or a little Oriental child or a little Martian child, you know, as long as I do a good job, you know. So my work has changed in that respect where I tend to paint things that are universal. Yes.
Well, and you started out by telling us about your commercial success with the lunch money, and I know that being an artist is doing that tightrope walk of your artistic talent and your artistic ability and our artistic endeavors with also being a commercial. You have to sell the art to be a professional artist. So I'm wondering how you balance that act of artistic practice versus selling your work, and if there's any tools that you've used, or if you've partnered with anybody, or how you've really been able to sell yourself and your art.
There was a artist from San Antonio. Her name was Sarah Eyestone, and she gave a workshop in New Brownville, and the workshop would tell you how to market your work, like if you did portraits, how to lean toward portraiture. If you did abstract, there's a market for, say for instance, sheets. The design on the sheet, somebody has to do that. That's where the abstract would come in. But basically, I've gone to the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. I've gone to the Capini, Austin Pastel Society. But basically, what you do is you surround yourself, go to different venues, and you network with other artists. And in networking with other artists, you can find out where do you go, where they're having venues, vendors, where would you go to do this? Basically, you find out by networking with other artists,
Ethel, any advice for the audience members about how to do that, balancing act? And
I think Ronnie's right. You do network, but I think the thing that's given me the strength and some exposure is because of my community work and being part of a community where you just say yes to things. As I was told yes to be a part of it and accepting, and before you know it, you're running a space, you're curating shows, and that happens, and then you have residencies, and then you bring people from other parts of the world to come here, and you get to go there, and I think Ronnie's right. It's different. It's about making your community broader than just your neighborhood or your city or your town. I think that's how you do it. But it's exchanging ideas, exchanging time, giving time, like that.
Jenelle, any advice?
For sure. Well, definitely networking, absolutely. And being a part of a community and being involved, saying yes, for sure. Like that's a big part of it. And staying connected to people who are also in it with you. We're all in the same boat. We're all kind of helping each other, and everybody else's success just puts everybody else in your community on the map as well. And I've always I think that's what really attracted me to San Antonio as well. Moving here for school was just how active the arts community was, and that didn't really necessarily exist on the same level in Corpus. It was different in Corpus, and I totally I love Corpus. It's just my home forever. And I love all the artists and their amazing community down there as well. And moving here was like just a new, different space to be involved in. And I think any advice would be to just make the thing. You know, you have to have a lot of work to show. And before you can say yes and before you can, get involved is the first entry into involvement is making your work and making it for yourself and not, I would say, not compare yourself or your path to anybody else's and just make your own way. My grandma used to tell me that, make your own way and just be an individual and you'll stand out from everybody and, tell your truth and tell your story in that way. And then, and then network and then share it with other folks and then learn about other people's work. And it just informs, the next thing.
In hindsight, I wanted to add, like, say for instance, all 5 of us that are sitting up here, I've met people that come in and I ask them, are you an artist? And they say, well, I draw a little bit, but I'm really not that good. That's the first thing you have to eliminate. Like, say for instance, he has his style. She has her style. She has her style, I have mine, you have yours. Don't compare yourself to how her work is, how his work is. You have one competitor. The only competitor you have is yourself. You compete to do better today than you painted yesterday. You block all of these people out and just concentrate on being the best you that you can be, and everything else will speak for itself.
Francisco, on that advice about
the
balancing act of artistic practice versus marketing and business?
Ooh, I'm a horrible business person, so I don't know if I can help. But I think to begin with, like really putting in that work, so that later on it alleviates some of the pressures. So for example, the first couple years that I was doing photography, I was just shooting as much as I could. Even if you didn't want me there, I was gonna be there, right? And respectfully. And and it was a lot of, and I don't exaggerate, like it was a lot of nights of like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I had a job, I had a daughter that I was basically taking care of my own, and then still doing photography. So, but I knew it had to be done, and I knew it had to be done because I knew I didn't have the luxury of, jumping in this years before, right? Or having a support network. But I think after a while, then, it's that, that pressure that forges something else. Then I think, it also creates a certain level of confidence. I think a big level of confidence, it helps tremendously. I mean, I feel a lot of times that's what people are, if you're talking about making money and commission work and things like that, I think that's a lot of times what people are buying, because I see a lot of people out there very confident, low skills, right? And good for them, right? But I see you. Just like, no idea. But yeah, no, and I think it goes back to, being genuine, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, it's that fake it till you make it, American mentality, which is fine. But I think it's important to know like where you're at, right? And then also know your target audience, who you're working with, who you could get away with that. How do you value your own work? Do you treat it as just a transaction? Do you treat it as a gift? A lot of times things that I do, it's really on a sliding scale, right? If I know that you don't really appreciate it and you got the money, I'm gonna charge you a whole lot more, and that's the reality of it. And I have no problem sharing that because I think that's the way it should be. At the same time, it is my art. So if I'm if I'm providing my art to you and you honestly like truly don't appreciate it, you just want it as a thing, I'm kind of letting more than my art go. You know, I'm letting a little bit of myself go at the same time. And so I have no problem being compensated for that. Right. And if I am giving basically a gift to somebody that appreciates it and sees the value and sees me as a person and makes a connection and makes them feel a certain way, shoot, I mean, I'll pretty much almost give it away. Right. Because it is art. It's not a, mass produced product. And so a lot goes into it. And so I want to pass it along. But yeah, it can be tricky. And because of that, like I said, I'm not a great business person. Yeah. So probably not the best task.
Well, and I will say it's our mission to also let community know that artists do deserve to be paid for their work and to let artists know that they deserve to make a living from their passion. So, of course, gifting is great, but we also want people to get paid. But it's all it's your, like you said, it's your own vision. It's your own. You're putting a lot of yourself into it, and it's your own life, and you do with it what you want. So, let's see here. Oh, got about 10 minutes left before we do the Q&A, and I know that all of you have talked about the tenacity it takes to do this, and so I wanted to know about challenges you faced in your pursuit of your artistic practice and just how you've overcome those. Ronney, if you'd like to start.
Challenges. Say, for instance, if you go to do a festival where it costs $400 for like a 3-day weekend, and it's a rain and shine event, meaning if it rains, you do not get any money back. In any business, be it art or collecting aluminum cans, it's not good business sense to spend $5 to make $2. So with that being said, I tend to pick and choose, save the overhead, and like him, when I create my work, I do create my work to sell it, but I've had instances where it's somebody that I know that their money is a little challenged, but they want something. I have actually just given stuff away as opposed to the person that, if I say it costs $5, well, how about you take $3.50? And then I raise the price to $7. But the bottom line is you're in it to when you have to make a living, you have to add numbers, and just keep in mind that it's not good business sense to spend $5 to make $2. I don't care what business you're in, art, aluminum cans, shooting marbles, whatever it is. Dollars and cents. It matters. Cut your overhead.
Ethel, how about any challenges you faced that you've overcome?
I think my challenges are within myself, so I think sometimes it's the challenging part is finding time to get to the studio sometimes because of work and commitments is more than anything. But, this is a bad business practice anyway, because if you're represented by somebody, you give everybody you give this entity your inventory. You just hand it over, and then they take half, and you take half. If it's a good partnership, it's good. So I luckily have had a positive experience, and I think that in San Antonio, I have to say that I don't mean to plug anybody, but I think our institutions, particularly Blue Star, with Red Dot, has open up an opportunity for people to kind of have exposure, but they're very fair on saying you can either give it all or none or whatever it is. And I think that has opened up a little bit of a avenue for people to show and give and do. I know that's how I've been able to be collected by quite a few people. So it's not a great business practice, but I don't know any other business I'd love this much.
Jenelle?
Challenges. There's a lot if you're going to go into the arts, because it's not like a guaranteed success or a guaranteed career, and it's more of like this passion or purpose-driven endeavor. And so you could consider it a risk if you're thinking in like these traditional streamlined terms of making money and building a life, but I really wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like you have to accept those risks and challenges and potential failures if you're going to go into the arts, because it's really unpredictable. And you kind of have to adapt and roll with the punches, because you're doing something that you really love to do for that purpose only, that you really love to do it, that it's part of you and you're expressing yourself. And so if that concept alone is something that you are really being driven by and pulled in by, then just give into it, and like it will just be provided. Like something will happen or some opportunity will come your way, and you'll just grab it and you'll know it and it'll just feel right. And maybe that's really horrible advice, but for any like parents raising kids or anything. But that's what I did, and that's all I can really speak to, because that was my own experience. And it's definitely challenging, because you really don't know what is going to lie ahead in the next couple of years or something like that. But I do feel like kind of chasing the way that I chased things, and I really, really, really love being an artist, and I really love making art and sharing it. And I think it's important to make art for yourself first. And like Ronney and everybody else here was saying, like making art that is true to you, and kind of blocking everybody else out, and not comparing yourself to other people's paths and other people's art and styles and things. And then you start getting all that like spiral in your head of like our self-doubt. I mean, artists have like the most self-doubt probably in the history of people and humans, but we are amazing. I am so in awe and amazed at artists every single day, at what we create, at how we see the world, at how we shape the world, and how we can share those perspectives with the world through an image or a concept or a written word or a photograph or a mural or a screen print. And I just think that is the most amazing thing ever. And it's an ancient practice. There are artists been in the world and all over the globe since the beginning. And I really believe in it. I think it's powerful. And if you want to be an artist, just be an artist.
Francisco?
Those are all such good answers. But, universal truths, because it's, Ronney said it, Jenelle said it, that don't compare yourself, and specifically, Jenelle, you said, don't compare your path. That's the thing. Not only about like how you got to the level that you're at in your art, but also like your story, your experiences as a person, I think there were times where I used to compare myself to other photographers. I want to say early on, but that's a lie. It's like it wasn't until a couple years ago where I started finally feeling better about myself, because I realized it's like, well, my images do look different. Maybe I'm not at this level yet, or I wasn't at this level at a certain time, but I had X, Y, Z to go through, growing up. Sometimes it's just a miracle that I'm even alive. So and I wasn't born with certain privileges and access, and using my daddy's Hasselblad or something like that. So yeah, I'm at where I'm at. And for a reason. I'm not gonna work miracles for somebody else. And going back once again, make art for yourself first and foremost. Which is why, once again, not the best businessman, but like, yeah, I don't mind charging a lot for something. I don't mind giving something away because it's mine, And I made it, when I created it, like it meant something to me and to me, not anybody else. And if I want to share that, then here you go, because I feel that connection, that you appreciate it and you understand it, right? And so yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I see a lot of people beat themselves up about like, I'm not there, you're not there. It's like, you'll get there as long as you keep on putting in work, as long as you really are making this for yourself, as long as your inspirations and motivations are true to you. Never mind what other people think. Keep on doing what you do.
Well, with that, we're going to open it up to audience questions. We do have a microphone here. You'll see it on the stand in the front. So if you do have a question, if you could make your way up to the microphone, we would appreciate them.
Anyway, I was just going to ask, can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
My name's Helen, and I'm retired military, and I used to do art when I was young, and then I finally got back into it after I retired. I was able to have some organizations help me out, but I've always kind of done it my whole life. But anyway, I'm running out of space in our house for like my paintings, and I was curious because I read different things. I don't, get out a lot, but where do you like I read that you shouldn't go sell your art at the vending sites or stuff, and like how do I get in to go be able to sell my art and people to see it? Where do places that I go that I can show my art that are just not like real expensive or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think selling art as a vendor is a bad thing. Okay. I think anywhere and any kind of exposure or place that you can share it with is great, especially if it's a vending situation where you can display things for sale. And now I always give advice about documenting your art. If you get to show it in a gallery space or a venue of any kind, I say take photographs and then save those photographs because you could use them to apply to things. There's lots of open calls, being on email lists. That's one of the best ways, or applying for things, applying for grants or for juried exhibitions, or just applying to things. A lot of it's done online. And so having really good documentation of paintings, or not even just exhibitions, but photographing just a nice JPEG, a good sized JPEG of all your work is a good thing to have, because that's a really surefire way for lots of people to see your art. And then if you put it out there, opportunities will show up and people will ask you. Even if you don't I apply to things all the time and I don't get them, but it doesn't mean that 50 people in the industry didn't see it and consider it and look at it. And maybe they didn't choose it as the chosen thing, but they saw it, they considered it, and all those people, they curate, they're directors, they run spaces, they give art shows all the time, and they might sit on other panels, not just that panel, but they'll sit on other panels and consider your work, and they think maybe they weren't good for this opportunity, but they might be good for this next thing. So I always say document and share as much as you can and get it out there. Or vend, go set up there's lots of vending and pop-up events or a pop-up show. Mm-hmm. And I think just sharing it and getting it out there will definitely get it out of the studio and clear up some space, even for a night or a week or a month. But getting it out there, and people need to see it. Yeah.
Okay, that helps, because I know Bill House, they give veterans opportunity to put our stuff in.
Yes.
Every other year.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been up twice, and then our art instructor had a show and she allowed us to put our stuff in. So I started painting birds on feathers, and I ended up selling all my stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome. Keep doing it.
Also, you can do the poor man's copyright, where you take a picture of your work, mail it to yourself, and don't open it. Just put it away.
Okay.
That's the poor man's copyright. And what makes it legit is the postal seal on there. So, say for instance, this is dated May 16th, 2023, and your artwork is shown somewhere in Louisiana in 2025, but you have this unsealed letter when you go to court that it is your work. But also, I don't put anything online like it's the inexpensive website is Wix.com. But whatever you put on there, even if you take the pencil and write your name right across the face, just watermark your work, because I've seen people that go and look at stuff online, print it out, and put it in a frame, and they've paid you nothing. So just right
So is
across the
watermark
face.
different? Is watermark different from than using that little? I'm a baby boomer too, so I'm not real computer wise, but that little pen, like when you go to photo and you edit and you pull the pen down and you can write your signature and then print it on there. They can just take that off, or like I put it up right next to
If you put it right across the face, they literally gonna have to draw it again in order to get it off. You make them earn it.
Yeah, because I do a lot of photos too. I chase hawks, and so I do a lot of hawk photos and bird photos. So like I try to put my name like as close to the bird as I can.
I put it right across that bird's beak.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll do that now. Thank y'all.
Howdy. All right. So considering the rising costs of tuition and schooling, I'm wondering if you would recommend for any young wannabe artists in the audience, if you would recommend that they go to art school to become successful professional artists, and to what extent should they get their BFA? Should they get their MFA? Should they not get their MFA? Just go for the BFA? Recommendations like that. Education curator.
Well, I would say it is very, very expensive. So if you're going to do it, you got to go full into it. There's no wishy-washy, like I'm going to try it out, and if I don't like it, just go into it, because there are opportunities on the other end. There's no guarantee. I do not have a master's degree. I got my BFA, but because I started off taking community college and I was like, I really love this. So that's how I moved to San Antonio, was because I pursued a BFA, a bachelor degree in fine art, and then stayed here because I loved the opportunities and I loved the scene and everything about it. And I chose not to go into an MFA. But had I gone into an MFA, it wouldn't have been better or worse. I think it just would have brought different opportunities my way. So it's really like your own choice. That's like not real. It's kind of like a non-answer, but it really is your own choice. I think if you're going to get an MFA, then you're probably going to end up teaching, and you're probably going to end up moving away to go chase a professional teaching job somewhere at a great university. And that's a really wonderful thing. I have lots of friends with MFAs who live all over the country teaching. And the great thing about being in academia in the arts is that they pay you to not only work there and teach, but also to pursue and keep your resume busy and loaded with opportunities. They give you sabbaticals to do residencies. A lot of universities will pay for your shipping if you exhibit somewhere. It's a great deal. Yes, you will be in debt. There's no question about that. But if you want to buy a home, you're going to be in debt for like 30 years. So it's kind of like you're going to be in debt no matter what, because we live in a country that literally thrives on debt. So you can't really avoid it, really. That's just the reality of it. So like, just make your choice, do what you want to do with your life. Go into, it's like there's all this pressure to go and get a job that is going to pay you enough to pay off your loans. And that's definitely true. You definitely want to do that. But if you really loved art, there are opportunities and jobs out there. You might have to leave home and move somewhere else to go pursue it and make it. But it's okay. It's exciting, and it's worth it because you'll be doing something that you love.
I say that it's a balancing act. I took the art class and I also took a business class. And the business instructor said that they had a BS, which is Bachelor of Science, and then they had an MS, which is more of the, and then they had the PhD, which was piled higher and deeper. So I don't know what he was speaking of, but the best instructor that I've had is hands-on training. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes improvement. Hands-on training, and like I say, it's a balancing act. You can, like the Capini, the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center, you can take life drawing classes where you don't have to auction off your firstborn child. You know, it's, you kind of, pick and choose, but it is a balancing act. But most importantly, focus on the craft. I have something in my studio by Maya Angelou. It says, do what you do, whatever your passion is, do what you do and do it so well that people can't take their eyes off of you. And all the tangible rewards will come as a result. In other words, don't focus on how much money I'm gonna make, just focus on getting good at your craft, and it'll take care of itself. If that makes sense.
Hey y'all, thank y'all for having this discussion with us. I do want to ask, as an artist, I've been arting since 2009, and this is the first time that I've ever heard that San Antonio provides resources and money for artists that are looking for grants and stuff like that. So this is more a question for the Department for the Arts and Culture. What are y'all doing to make this information more accessible for people who don't have access to like the internet and who don't meet the deadlines, that when you're giving out these grants, what are y'all doing to make this more accessible to people who are, I would say, less fortunate on the information?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've concentrated our marketing efforts, and I think I hope that you've seen an increase in the word about what we offer with the City of San Antonio's Department of Arts and Culture, because it has been a big focus of ours to meet people where they are. So we're actually having more community meetings, whether it is about public art or any of our opportunities in certain areas of town where you don't have to come downtown to a city building to learn about this. We're actually going to community centers or to cultural centers to let people know. We do focus a lot of our marketing efforts on certain zip codes, and it's based on an equity atlas. So we're looking at zip codes that have been historically underserved when it comes to opportunities. And so that's another way that we're just trying to get print advertising. We do some digital advertising as well. But again, it's meeting people where they are. And then for people that don't have internet access, if it does have a grant opportunity behind it, our team is willing to meet with people, whether it be at a library or even at our space, to provide a computer access to apply for our grants, because we provide one-on-one technical assistance. So we do have a website presence. It is sanantonio.gov/arts. You can find all of our opportunities on there, but any of our team members are willing to meet artists where they are, and we do it in ways that are more accessible to have, evening workshops or weekend workshops about our grant opportunities. And it's just really trying to get into community organizations to spread the word, so artists don't have to come find us, we're finding you. Okay. Since we don't seem to have any additional artists or Q&A. Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
So, I also substitute teach, and so there's more than one time since I substitute teach. I've found other kids, but this little girl's like maybe 7 years old, and you would think she was an adult because she comes up to me all the time and she shows me fashion art. Like she draws, I want to make this. And she draws like you see in the magazines and you see on TV. Anyway, so I talked to her dad about it. And so I was trying to find somewhere like he could take her, like, because it's a gift. I grew up with a girl it was a gift. Like, she could just draw out of her head. And she actually taught me how to draw, like learning with the shapes first and learning how to add to it. And when we went to high school, it was the first time ever in the career of the high school that we were both voted best artists. They gave 2 awards for both of us. I said if I got it, I was going to give it to her because she taught me how to draw. But anyway, I was just looking. Is there something for people that young, 7 years old? Like they're little, but I mean, she's very gifted.
Yeah, so there's a number of community organizations that do provide art education. And I'm willing to, stay after to talk about some of those community organizations. Our department is really focused on professional artists that are working on careers because our money does come from the hotel occupancy tax, and we have a limit to what it's state regulation on what we can spend that money on. So we're really focused on the professional artwork. But there are a number of organizations. I mean, for that young, I mean, we're looking at, the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. We're looking, SACE has programs. So we can talk afterwards. There's even some other educational opportunities.
I asked because, I mean, she's like amazing.
Okay.
I feel that too. I have a niece who's got a gift. She loves it. Ever since she was a kid, she could sit there for hours and just paint, where all my other nieces and nephews would do it for a couple of minutes and be done with it. So I would say definitely like the cultural arts centers and stuff, and then also going on the free days to museums and just exposing them to art in a museum setting or a gallery setting, taking them to art openings. I take her to everything. I take her to Austin. I take her here in San Antonio. And she can see the different scales. She can see the different styles. And I think that's also exposure that doesn't cost too much money if you go on the free nights.
And a lot of the institutions have family days, right?
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
Yep.
Where
Yeah.
all those kinds of, where
Oh, yeah.
different activities happen.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be, free days for families. And then I do have to plug San Antonio Cultural Arts because they do have community paint days. And I believe there's one that's might be happening this weekend. I'll have to look. But it's where anybody in the community can come out, and it's children of all ages can come and help paint murals and do artistic activities.
First of all, let me just say thank you very much for putting this on tonight. I am a chemist at UTSA, and I was, with all the rain, I was contemplating whether to drive down here or not, because after it's over, I have to drive home all the way out at Medina Lake, so it's like an hour drive to get home. But I'm really glad that I came. I did want to ask a question of you guys, and that is, I am an artist at the River Art Gallery in La Vita, and I've been there for about 5 years. Do a wide range of photography because I'm a chemist by profession. That's kind of like my angle that I take with clients and customers is, I do pre-digital and pre-film work where it's the chemistry that's making the image. But the issue I think that I've had is I don't have a venue or any way that I've figured out yet to have more sales or more exposure to San Antonio. About 95% of the buyers or the clients that come in are tourists. So I have to, offer, pictures of the missions or like something that they want a souvenir. But I have a whole body of lightning photography that tourists are not necessarily going to buy. But if I was going somewhere else and they would say, Mike, what is your body of work? It would be like the lightning. So my question for you guys would be, in San Antonio, how do you get more exposure to the 2 million folks that live right around here? And once again, thank you very much.
Well, I think open calls is the way to go. The San Antonio Art League just recently had an open call, and they had a curator from outside of San Antonio look at the work. And I think if you look for open calls for the different institutions that sometimes offer that, That's the way it starts. For at least that's the way I remember it starting for me. So open calls, and even they can be national or international. So I would look online for open calls. I think that's my best answer. I think
that's good. Like applying to things for sure. If you wanted to, it just depends on where you want to show and where you think your work fits. Because it's not really about anybody else saying to you, I think your work fits here. It's really where you feel your work fits. So if you like a particular gallery or a website or a shop and you're like, I want to see my art in there, I think my art fits well, then go there or meet them or go to the events or apply to the thing. Or, I think it is about, I think Ronney said networking in the very beginning. I think it is about that. And definitely applying to get your work further out there. A lot of organizations will have guest curators come in from different places, and you just never know what'll come that way, But getting it out of the studio is important.
they have George shows and things like that you'll see advertisements for. Look online too, and I think that's where you go.
And and right here in San Antonio, the Capini, right there on McCullough and Hildebrand, right behind Don's and Ben's. You could network with artists there. They have instructors, and a lot of them are downtown in La Villita, but you would start at the Capini, the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. You would network with the artists there, the Carver Library, which is local, the Magnay, and even the other place, the Josephine, on Josephine Street.
The theater?
Even there.
Oh, the other one, yeah.
Yes, they have different venues here where the networking comes in, that you go in, and by networking with artists there, they can let you know of other venues where you can deal with artists. Even Austin has a liaison between San Antonio and Austin to expose your work in that whole loop. But other than just the tourist venue downtown, but
you got to get it out. It's up to you to get it out.
The networking comes, but it's places here, and from that can expose you to other venues.
And in town, there's also First Fridays and Second Saturdays. So keeping up with those schedules
Blue
of art
Star.
shows. Blue Star is on First Friday. Lots of galleries within Blue Star Complex. And
Small
then,
artist-run galleries as well that are approachable.
right. And Second Saturday on South Flores also has a ton of artist-run spaces and galleries that, I think just attending those openings and getting to know the spaces and the people that run them is a good idea.
And the other artists that are down there as well, like the Little Studio and the other venues, within each one of those venues, there are artists in there, and you're there.
It's a long drive home.
Communicate with them.
Yeah. I know it's hard to get out of the comfort zone a little bit, and we get into our routines and stuff, but there's a lot in San Antonio. That's one of the reasons why I stuck around, because there is a lot of artist-run spaces is really heavy here.
I'll also plug our department's artist registry. So we have the sanantonio.gov/arts website, where it's a free service where you can create a profile. You have that? Okay. And that's something that in terms of us marketing artists, we have a partnership with Visit San Antonio, and I know it's more of that visitor convention meeting space, but they are looking for artists quite often, to either perform if you're a musician or do, provide visual artwork for conventions or meetings. But we've seen success where we've been tagged by artists who have been commissioned by San Antonio residents, just looking at our artist registry saying, I really like this person's work, and they're actively saying they're getting commissions from that site. So that's great that you're on it, and we'll continue to push that site out as a way to hire artists. Okay.
I've got another question.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
To what extent do you think that Texas art or artists in Texas, art in Texas, is going to struggle considering what seems to be an extreme conservative slant that is happening in the state? How is
I think we just have to keep doing our stuff. I mean, activism, your own work, and I don't know that we have control over that conservative slant other than.
Yeah, but do you think it's going to get like much harder to be an artist with this?
No, I think you just just be you, man.
I think even all over the world, historically, artists that were creating in the middle of World War II, or artists that have been creating in Texas and all over the country throughout different battles and skirmishes and political upheaval and all kinds of things. I think art is the one thing that definitely perseveres through it all. And you don't necessarily even have to be like an activist artist to do that, but there's book banning and that kind of art being suppressed, and images of certain things just being
I was suggesting that your art is your activism.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think just the perseverance of it, because they, and there's always going to be a place to show it and expose that and share that viewpoint. But yeah, I think art does persevere throughout, despite the political.
I don't know that it was ever that much better, other than just making your work. I can't really remember a time that it was that much better. So.
Definitely.
Well, and I'll also add that yesterday morning, actually, at the State House, it's a legislative session right now, and it still has to go through the House and Senate, but it's passed committee, where it will be a historic funding for the Texas Commission on the Arts. And so that would mean more grant funding for cultural districts. That would mean more grant funding for nonprofits throughout the state. So even though, there's a lot to be, have angst about when it comes to legislative sessions, I do think that was a really big win, because they even increased salaries and staff for the Texas Commission on the Arts, who have been asking for that for years. So I think these are things that it speaks to the power of advocating and coming together, because it took people all across the state to go to the state capitol and talk about how important the arts is, and how this investment in art communities and arts cultural districts and arts nonprofits is good for all. And it was a really positive, and it did it so fast. They just said, yep, let's move it on, because it's just kind of a no-brainer, especially when there's a lot of industries going and asking for 300, 400 million. A request for 12 million isn't that much compared to what people are asking for. So it's those little wins and being strategic on the advocacy side, while also sticking to your craft, sticking to what you do, having that tenacity and saying, I'm doing this because this is my calling and no one else can tell me differently.
Yeah, just make your work. That's all. That's makes me feel better. I don't know, reading the news and everything is really disappointing if you live in Texas. But just making your work makes it better.
Next question.
Hi.
How do you join the San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture?
I'm sorry?
Oh, how do you join the San Antonio?
The registry.
Oh, yes. Oh, on the registry? So you would go to sanantonio.gov/arts, and there will be a button right on the homepage that says Artist. And you can click that, and it'll take you straight to the registry, and there will be a link toward the end of the first paragraph that says Create Your Profile. And you'll create a short login, and then it'll ask you for your name, your email address, your address, and then you can upload your resume. You can upload images and videos of your work. You can upload your social media handles, your website. It's kind of like a LinkedIn for artists. And even if you don't have a website, let that be your website. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Well, with that, I think this is a great time to end the panel discussion so that we can mix and mingle and you can ask any questions, one-on-one. I really want to thank our artists for joining us here today, for taking the time out of your day to join community and have us learn from you. So let's please give them a round of applause. And again, thank you to our partners at Texas Public Radio. Thank you to you for braving the weather, and we hope that you all have safe travels back home tonight.